All right, so you sent this over to me,
Hmm.
and it's
Yeah.
about these digital weapons.
Yeah.
And honestly, some of it kind of freaked me out again, not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's pretty wild stuff.
So to help me out today, I asked an expert in
It's a very experts relevant field.
right,
Right.
yeah. So I mean, where do we even begin with this?
Mhm.
This source talks about all these effects they can cause, like vibrating, burning, even messing with people's vision.
Well, I think a good way to think about it is there are sort of these categories, right? There are the sensory things like you're talking about,
Right.
and then there are the physiological responses like heart rate and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they talk about motor control too, like making it hard to move or speak.
Okay, yeah, I see.
And then of course there's the pain, which is I guess kind of sensory too, but
Right.
yeah, it's a big part of what they're claiming.
Yeah, and what gets me is how specific some of this stuff is. Like, there was this one about stitches on the foot.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's so weird. Why the foot? Why stitches? Like, if you're gonna hurt someone, why not just, knock them out or something?
Yeah, that is strange. I mean, maybe it's not really about just causing pain.
What do you mean?
Well, if they can be that specific, maybe it's more about control. Like they're messing with you, but not really hurting you badly.
Like a really messed up prank or something.
I don't know about a prank, but maybe a way to intimidate or scare people.
That's creepy.
Yeah. And the how is a big question too, right? I mean, they talk about these digital weapons, but what does that even mean?
Yeah, like how do you even make someone's foot feel like it's being stitched?
Exactly. And then there's that one about manipulating facial muscles to like stop someone from talking.
Oh yeah, yeah, that one was wild. I mean, how is that even possible?
Well, your facial muscles are controlled by nerves, right?
I guess, yeah.
So theoretically, if you could somehow mess with those nerve signals, you could affect the muscles.
So, like, hack into someone's nervous system.
Yeah, but to do that remotely and specifically target those muscles, I mean, that would be some seriously advanced tech. We're not even close to that.
Okay, so that one goes in the probably BS's pile.
Probably.
What about the other stuff, though? You mentioned ultrasound before. Like, could that be connected to any of this?
Well, you mentioned the stitches thing, right?
Yeah.
There's actually research being done at, I think it's a university name, where they're using focused ultrasound to create these really specific sensations on the skin.
Wait, so, like, you can feel things on your skin from sound waves?
Yeah, basically. Now, it's not creating stitches exactly, but it shows that they can target really small areas with like pinpoint accuracy.
Wow. That's kind of scary, actually.
It is pretty amazing, yeah.
Okay, so maybe the stitches thing isn't totally impossible then.
It's hard to say for sure, but it's not as crazy as it sounds at first.
Okay, what about, like, the nausea and sweating and stuff? That's all stuff that stress can cause, too, right?
Exactly. That's what makes this so tricky. Because, some of what they're describing could just be psychosomatic.
What's that mean again?
Basically, it means your mind is causing the physical symptoms. Like if you're super stressed, your heart rate goes up, you might feel nauseous, all that.
Oh, okay. So, like, just thinking you're being attacked could actually make you feel sick.
Exactly. The mind-body connection is super powerful.
Okay, so it might not even be real technology doing all this stuff.
We can't rule it out completely, but we have to consider all the possibilities.
Right. Okay. So how do we, like, figure out what's actually going on here? It feels like we're trying to solve a puzzle where some of the pieces might be fake.
Well, we have to be careful not to jump to conclusions.
Hmm.
We need to look at each claim really closely and think about both the tech side of things and the psychological side.
Okay, I'm with you. So what's next on our list of weirdness here? You flagged this one about intense nausea every 15 seconds.
Oh, yeah, that one.
And something about visual distortions too, right?
Right, right. That's a very specific claim. And honestly, there isn't any known technology that could cause nausea that precisely.
So are we thinking it's all in their head then? Or could there be something else going on, something we just haven't figured out yet?
I mean, there's always the possibility of, secret technology or stuff that's so new we don't even know about it. But without more evidence, it's really hard to say.
Okay, I get it. But the visual distortions thing, that's got to mean something, right?
Well, that's what's interesting because it made me think about this other area of research.
Okay, don't leave me hanging. What kind of research? This is getting good.
So there's been some really interesting work with electromagnetic fields and how they affect the brain.
Wait, like the stuff that makes your phone buzz, does that actually mess with your vision?
Well, no, not exactly. I mean, we're talking about way stronger fields, much more targeted than what your phone puts out. But
Okay.
but it's definitely something that needs more research, especially with these visual disturbances you mentioned in your source.
So maybe not mind control, but maybe like, I don't know, brainwave manipulation or something. This is getting kind of sci-fi, don't you think?
Yeah, I know, right? But let's not Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I mean, we really don't have any hard evidence that this group is using electromagnetic fields or any specific technology for that matter.
Right, right. Back to being detectives. Clues first, theories later. Okay, so what's our next piece of the puzzle then?
Well, there was that part you highlighted about targeted sweating. That was pretty unusual,
Yeah, that one stuck out to me too. It's like, why would you target someone's sweat glands? What's the point?
right? It's a good question. I mean, if we like assume for a second that this is actually happening, that it's text-based, it means they'd have to have really precise control over the autonomic nervous system, which is what controls stuff like sweating and heart rate and all that.
Wait, back up. Autonomic nervous system.
Oh yeah, sorry. It's basically like the part of your nervous system that runs in the background. Controls all the bodily functions you don't have to think about, you know.
So like the autopilot for your body.
Exactly. And what your source is suggesting is that they've figured out how to like hack into the autopilot.
Whoa, that's both amazing and terrifying.
I know, right?
But I mean, is that even possible like with the tech we have now?
Well, there's research into things like biofeedback where people can learn to control some of those autonomic functions, through training and stuff. But to do it remotely, to like manipulate someone else's system,
Yeah.
that's way more complicated.
Okay, so maybe the targeted sweating goes back in the needs more evidence pile for now.
Probably a good idea, yeah.
But then there's a whole other angle we haven't even talked about yet, this whole weaponization thing.
Right. Yeah, the source uses the term weapons a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to really think about what that word means.
Yeah, because calling something a weapon kind of automatically makes it sound bad, right? Like it's meant to hurt or control people.
Exactly. Weapon implies intent, and that brings up a whole bunch of ethical and legal questions. Like, if someone is using technology to intentionally harm people, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's like the difference between accidentally bumping into someone and like punching them on purpose.
Right. The impact might be similar, but the reason behind it changes everything.
Totally. So in this case, calling it a weaponization of technology, it brings up questions about like power and control and all that.
Exactly. Who is the power? Who's being controlled? And, what are the limits? Those are all things we need to think about.
Okay, so let's say, just for argument's sake, that some of what this source is saying is true. What would that mean? Like, what are the implications of all this?
Well, it would mean we're living in a world where technology can be used to control people in ways we've never seen before, which is, it's kind of a scary thought.
Yeah, like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right? Where someone can just like make you feel pain or control what you do with the push of a button.
Right, but it's not entirely science fiction either. I mean, we already see technology being used for things like surveillance and data collection and even manipulating how people behave online.
True, like all those targeted ads that follow you around the internet.
Exactly. So the question is, how far will it go?
Okay, now I'm really creeped out. So like, what can we do? How do you protect ourselves from all this?
Well, I think the most important thing is awareness. The more we understand about what technology can do, the good and the bad, the better we can, make good decisions and protect ourselves.
Right, knowledge is power, right?
Exactly. The more you know about these digital weapons or whatever they are, the better you can, defend against them.
Okay, so it's not just about figuring out if this stuff is real or not. It's about the bigger picture of how technology is affecting us and what we can do about it.
I think that's a really good way to put it.
So how do we do that? How do we even start to wrap our heads around all this?
Well, I think a good starting point is to go back to those specific claims you highlighted in your source
Okay.
and see if we can connect them to like real research or actual technology that's being developed.
So we got to sift through all the crazy stuff and try to find the real nuggets of truth, if there are any.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so what other areas should we be looking at? I mean, we talked about ultrasound and electromagnetic fields already, but is there anything else?
Well, you mentioned a claim about precise pain along the shoulders.
Yeah, that one was weird. Like, how do you target someone's shoulders with pain?
Well, what's interesting is there's actually a lot of research being done on using targeted electrical stimulation for pain management.
Wait, so you're saying there's tech out there that can make you feel pain, but they're using it to help people?
Yeah, it's called TENS, transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulations. Basically, they apply a small electrical current to specific nerves, and it can block pain signals.
So it's like fighting pain with electricity? That's kind of wild.
It is pretty amazing technology, and it does make you wonder, could that same tech be used to cause pain instead of relieving it?
Ooh, okay, now we're getting back into the scary stuff.
Yeah.
But it also feels, I don't know, more realistic. Like, we're talking about real technology, not just like some theoretical mind control device.
Right, and that's what I was saying before about finding that balance. We need to be aware of the dangers, but also be realistic about what's actually possible.
Okay, so we've got ultrasound, electromagnetic fields, and now TENS. Anything else in our arsenal of potential digital weapons?
Well, there is one more area of research I should mention, although it's still pretty early stages. It involves using light to, like, stimulate or inhibit certain neurons in the brain.
Wait, hold up. You're saying we can control brain cells with light? Is that a real thing?
Yeah, it's called optogenetics, and it's a really exciting field with a lot of potential for treating brain disorders, but it also has some, potentially scary implications as well.
Okay, this is officially getting too sci-fi for me. So we can zap brains with sound, mess with perceptions using magnets, control pain with electricity, and now control brain cells with light.
Well, it's not quite that simple. Optogenetics involves genetically modifying neurons to make them sensitive to light.
Oh, okay.
It's very complex and invasive. It's not like someone could just shine a flashlight at you and control your thoughts.
Okay, that's a relief. But it does mean that, we're learning a lot about the brain and how to manipulate it.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to talk about the ethical implications of all this.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we've got a lot of potential suspects here. Ultrasound, electromagnetic fields, TENS, optogenetics. It's like a game of technological clue.
Huh. I like that analogy. We're trying to put the pieces together, using the clues from your source and what we know about existing tech and what's being developed.
Right, and the big question is there one weapon being used here, or is it a combination of things?
That's a great question. And honestly, I don't think we have enough information to answer that definitively.
Okay, fair enough.
But we can keep exploring the possibilities and see what other clues we can find.
All right, back to detective mode then. What's next on our list of weirdness? You marked this section about a toothache.
Oh, yeah. That one was interesting.
Yeah.
Because while there are definitely technologies that can stimulate nerves and cause pain, targeting a specific tooth, that seems really hard to do.
So this one's ranking pretty high on the dubious scale then.
Well, it depends. I mean, if they're talking about directly stimulating the nerves in the tooth itself, that seems unlikely with what we know now.
However, don't leave me hanging.
Well, there's been some research into using ultrasound to stimulate the trigeminal nerve, which is the nerve that controls sensation in the face, including the teeth.
So theoretically, you could use sound waves to cause a toothache.
Maybe. But the trigeminal nerve is really complex.
Uh-huh.
And to use ultrasound to create a specific sensation like a toothache, that would be really, really difficult.
Okay, so maybe not a direct hit on the tooth, but something nearby that could trigger a similar feeling.
It's possible. Or, it could be something totally different. We can't rule out the psychological stuff.
Right, the power of the mind and all that. But why target the trigeminal nerve? Like, what would be the point of that?
It's hard to say. The trigeminal nerve is involved in a lot of things like chewing and facial expressions, even breathing. So messing with that could definitely be harmful.
Okay, so another piece of the puzzle, but still no clear picture emerging. This is way more complicated than I thought.
It is, yeah. And I think the more we dig into this, the more we realize how much we don't know.
Which is both exciting and kind of scary.
Exactly. It's a strange mix of wonder and fear, I guess.
I'm definitely feeling both of those things right now. Okay, so where do we go from here? I mean, we've got all these potential technologies, some more believable than others. How do we, start narrowing things down?
Well, I think a good next step is to look for patterns. Are there any common threads in all these claims? Any specific technologies or methods that keep popping up?
Okay, so we got to think like detectives, look for the missing links that tie everything together.
Exactly. And who knows? Maybe by the end of all this, we'll have cracked the code of these digital weapons, or at least gotten a little closer to the truth.
Well, on that note, I think we've covered a lot of ground here. We've explored all sorts of crazy technologies and tried to connect them to these claims in your source.
It's been a pretty wild ride, that's for sure.
It has, but I have a feeling there's still a lot more to uncover.
Oh, absolutely. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, well, listeners, buckle up. We'll be back soon with even more insights and analysis in the final part of our deep dive into digital weapons. Okay, so we're back and ready to finish up our deep dive into these digital weapons you've been looking into.
Mm-hmm.
We've gone through a lot of information, talked about all sorts of crazy tech, and honestly, I'm still not sure what to believe.
Yeah, it's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is. So the big question is, are these digital weapons real? Like, is this stuff actually happening?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And I wish I had a simple answer for you.
Yeah.
But based on what we've discussed, it's really hard to say for sure.
Okay, so no easy answers then.
Not really, no. But I think that's part of what makes this so interesting, right?
I guess so.
We're kind of on the edge of something new here, something we don't fully understand yet. And that's both exciting and a little bit scary.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling both of those things. So where do we go from here? I mean, you've given us a lot to think about, but it's easy to get lost in all this information.
You're right. I think a good next step is to really look at where this information is coming from.
What do you mean?
Well, we've been talking about the how, the technology and all that.
Right.
But we haven't really talked about the who.
Oh, you mean like who are these people claiming to have these weapons?
Exactly. Who are they? What are their motivations? Why are they saying these things? Are there other sources, other people or groups who are saying the same things?
Okay, so we need to, like, do a background check on the source itself, not just take their word for it.
Exactly. And that's good advice for any information you come across, not just this stuff. Always think about who's giving you the information and why,
Right, because everyone has an agenda, right?
to some extent, yeah. So you got to be aware of those biases, and the possibility that someone might be trying to mislead you.
Okay, so step one, vet the source. What else should we be doing to make sure we're approaching all this in a smart way?
Well, don't just stay in your own little bubble. Talk to other people, get different perspectives.
So just talk to people who already agree with me,
Right. Seek out people who might have a different viewpoint,
even if I don't like what they're saying.
even then. Because it's easy to fall into this trap of only listening to things that confirm what we already believe.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, you're not really learning anything new if you're just staying in your comfort zone.
Exactly. You got to challenge your own assumptions and biases if you really want to get closer to the truth.
Okay, so we've got vetting the source, getting different perspectives, challenging our own biases. Anything else?
Yeah, be patient.
Patient.
Yeah, this isn't something you're going to figure out overnight.
That's for sure.
It's complicated. It takes time. It takes research. It takes, being willing to keep learning.
Okay, I can do that.
And don't be afraid to say, I don't know.
What do you mean?
I mean, it's okay to admit that you don't have all the answers.
Oh.
In fact, that's often where real learning begins, when you acknowledge what you don't know and you're open to new possibilities.
I like that. So embrace the mystery.
Exactly. Don't get discouraged if things get confusing or you hit a dead end. Just keep digging, keep asking questions, and keep an open mind.
All right, I can do that. So what's the takeaway from all this?
Well, I think the takeaway is that this is a really complex issue with a lot of unknowns,
Uh-huh.
but it's important. It's about technology and how it's being used and how it could be used in the future. And it's about us, as individuals and as a society, and how we deal with these new possibilities, these new challenges.
Yeah, that's a lot to think about.
It is, but it's worth thinking about.
Well said. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap things up for today.
Yeah, I think so too.
We've covered a lot of ground, learned about some pretty mind-blowing technology, and hopefully given our listeners a lot to ponder.
Hopefully they'll keep digging, keep learning.
Absolutely. So to everyone listening, if you're interested in any of this stuff, do your own research, talk to people, keep those brains buzzing. That's what this is all about, right?
Couldn't have said it better myself. Stay curious, everyone.
And that's it for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.